miss this shot, you're not just letting me down, you're letting your whole team down too.
Hello and welcome to How I Would Have Written It, the show where myself and a panel of superfans take a movie or TV show title and each pitch how we would have written it ourselves. So tonight's tapestry to reweave is the Mighty Ducks Game Changers TV show. So before we go any further, I must add that even though we're like pitching our own version of the title, that's not to say that we're not fans of it, as in this case we're all fans of the Game Changers show. So before I go any further, let me introduce you to the panel this evening. So starting with the man with the biggest collection of Mighty Ducks movie screen-worn jerseys that I have ever seen, jersey chasing legend, Duluth East's own Connor is with us. Connor, how's it going?
After an introduction like that, I couldn't be better. I feel great.
We also have the hook, sword-wielding Mancurian, roller hockey's Adam Banks. Aaron is in the building. Aaron, how's it going?
Not too bad, mate. And obviously we've got it prepared. Don't worry. We're ready. So no one bring up any crap tonight because sword is on hand.
He'll stab himself.
Movie director, illustrator, toy collector. If Sylvester Stallone was from Sheffield, he would be this guy. Theo is here. Theo, how's it going?
Again, after that intro, couldn't be happier. The owner of the least amount of Mighty Ducks jerseys here, but I'll take that.
The nicest guy that you will ever meet, hailing from Beantown, the man, the myth, the sweep the leg legend. Jason is here. Jason, how's it going?
No one's ever said anything quite like that about me. Thank you. I could end this now and be happy.
Then that's it. We're good already then.
All right. It's a wrap. Thank you, guys.
And I'm Simon. So the way this works is I've assigned each of us a number from 1 to 5. So we'll each pick a number and that will depict the order. So at the end of this, I will show you what the numbers were so you know that I'm not just, making it up. But I think it's important that there's no straightforward order because there could be advantages to going first or going last or whatever. Who's the furthest out of Connor and Jason to where I'm sat right now? I'm guessing it's Connor.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Connor, as you have traveled the furthest through the internet, pick a number between 1 and 5.
3.
3 is Jason. So Jason, when you're ready, you will pitch your idea for how you would have written Game Changers, and then at the end of all of the pitches, in private via the chat function, you can send me directly which one was your favorite pitch and your second favorite pitch. Okay, so everyone will do this, and obviously you can't pick your own pitch. The favorite pitches will receive 3 points, and the runner-up will get 1 point. The winner and the runner-up will be announced at the end. None of the other ones, because we're not here to shame people. Okay, but that is not the most important part because we want to hear what everybody listening has to say. So the most important part is you have to put in the comments which pitch you liked the best and what was your reason behind it. I mean, it's not really about it being competitive. It's just about hearing these pitches. But, we want to hear which one you want so that we can then get Theo to write and direct it and produce it for his next Slimehouse production.
The winner gets the Hawks jersey behind you. Runner-up gets Goldberg. Is that what we agreed?
Are you talking to Connor? Okay,
no,
good.
Simon. The winner.
I better win then. So, Jason, whenever you're ready, my friend, hit us with your pitch.
All right. So I would absolutely go back and I would first of all call the show Bombay to make it more about Gordon Bombay's character. Similar in the Cobra Kai vein, where it's mostly about Johnny, and it picks up with the beginning of the show, kind of shows early on highlights from the trilogy of movies of how Gordon Bombay started, how he formed the Ducks, just like kind of like a quick synopsis, sort of similar to how they do it in D3. And they show him kind of walking off after the varsity game, and they show down with the varsity. And then they kind of show Bombay today, where something happened. He's down on his luck. He's by himself. And really the show is about Bombay. And here's the thing is, I actually don't have a problem with a lot of what they're doing with Game Changers. Keep Evan, keep his mom involved. But somehow the focus is Bombay, and we see everything through his eyes. We get to know why he's at where he's at after all this success. And through it, we also see more of the OG Ducks in more regular roles as Connie as a senator. Like, he'll turn on the news and he'll see Connie making a speech. He'll, maybe he needs lawyer help and Adam Banks is there. Maybe just different scenarios where the different characters appear in his life more. And because the one thing I know we talked about this, I really feel like Game Changers, as great as it is missing out on a lot of the nostalgia that they really could hit upon. So, yeah, I mean, it's not so much a big pitch like here's scene by scene by scene, but I just would focus it much more on Bombay. I would call the show Bombay. It would be his journey. And Evan and his mom and the other Don't Bothers would be definitely more the co-stars to Emilio Estevez.
Cool. That makes sense. Short, sweet, to the point. I liked it.
Yes.
Do we have any comments, questions from the rest of the panel here?
I like the name, definitely. As soon as he said I want to call it Bombay, I was like, yeah, that's dope.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think some of the cast members, the OG Ducks, have said in interviews that was originally going to be the name of the movie, the first movie, Bombay. So it'd just be kind of cool to
take it back.
Even because that has like a nostalgic twist to it.
His kind of Bombay's character. I mean, the character arc in Game Changers, and again, for the record, I actually really like Game Changers. It's solid. It's Disney Channel kind of stuff. Where we've talked about this even before. Originally, like Bombay, Jason, like you said, was going to be a little bit darker, and then they kind of like fluffed it up with the kids and sort of brought that underdog story. But having Bombay, just so down in the dumps, and then to have him like come back to a normal person, I thought it was just doing some injustice to the character. And I think incorporating him more so and being more in his head versus, him just being a part of it. Totally agree.
I guess for me, I'm still not 100% sure how he went from, I understand he was part of, he did something he shouldn't have when he was a college hockey coach, but haven't really gone into like, why is he so down on his luck that he's eating cruddy cake from kids' birthday parties and he's just like stuffing his face like by himself. Like, certainly as a lawyer and then having all the success, I mean, he has to have some money there, and it's just kind of like there needs to be more. Like, I feel like there's so much of a story that we're not getting. Like, why are he and Charlie so estranged? So that's what I would do.
Excellent. What? Any other comments on Jason's?
I know I've not said anything. I agree completely as well. And Bombay has sort of, and Emilio Estevez as an actor, has like the star power within as a character and the person to carry a series as well, and to still be the lead in the main, even though he's a director and filmmaker himself now. I mean, like, even in this series, like, as soon as he's on screen, I'm sure it's the same for you guys, that you pay attention, like, you know what he's doing, and you try and pick up on the Easter eggs and more things in the background, because there's just that interest there from, I guess, original fans. But yeah, there's definitely something there that we're just not getting enough of.
I think it's a bit more captivating as well, because he took like a break from being like in sort of the more Hollywood movies, and he was doing like these more indie films. Like, we haven't really seen him in these kind of like roles for a long time, so it gives more intrigue into it and more impact when he's on screen. So I definitely agree. I think, and I like the idea of it being called Bombay as well, because it's kind of like a Rocky type esque to it. Rocky, Creed, Bombay. It's like that. Here's the guy that we're interested in. And when you started there, Jason, I was like, okay. He's saying my exact pitch, but then it went a different way. So, but Jason, as you just went, can you give us a number between 1 and 5 that isn't free?
Sure. How about number 4?
I knew you was going to say that. Number 4 is me. So,
Hey, Simon, hold on 1 second. Do you mind if I take 30 seconds? My daughter's supposed to be in some piano lesson and she's not doing it.
yeah, go,
So my
man.
wife is blowing up my phone. Sorry.
That's cool, bro.
That's funny. Well, it's not funny, but it's funny.
We'll wait for him to come back. Yeah.
Yeah. Connie, you got this all to come at some point.
How long is everyone's? Because I'm like scared now. Mine's like ridiculously long and pretentious.
Mine is a lot longer than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've wrote a trilogy of films.
I knew Aaron messaged me before this, and he's like, "So, how long's your script?" And I knew there'd be a few that carry this.
Sorry about that.
No, all good.
Cool,
And,
bro.
I'm going to do my best here, but we got brilliant minds, and there's a reason why I collect jerseys and not write film. But we're going to do our best.
They're all going to be good all in their own way. It's all just
Of course, man. They're all coming from people that love this shit, man. So, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, good.
Go on, Simon.
Okay, so here's my pitch. So the introduction. So to note before starting, and I've kind of written this of giving like the outline of the first episode, and then just giving like the broad strokes for what the whole first season would look like. So before we start, all of the hockey is going to be shot with tension, because that's one thing that I think is missing from Game Changers. They're almost trying to make it too realistic in some way, and it's like, no, you know what? I want tension. I want the orchestra type music. I think that what I think is a really good example of is how they make TV for kids today versus how they made TV for kids in the 90s. And when you think about like movies that we all grew up on, like Gremlins and Ghostbusters and these types of movies that really were kind of like terrifying, but in the perfect kind of way, But they were like sincere in their approach. Like think about the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from like 1990. It's like it was shot. It's a kids movie, but they're not treating it like with all this slapstick comedy in, and it's got the great score behind it. And so because of that and the practical effects and everything, it's long lasting. So I want to bring that into my Mighty Ducks Game Changers. So we start, and very similar to how Jason was saying, flash, and we have, you missed this shot. You're not just letting me down, you're letting your whole team down too. I very close considered to actually getting these like sound bites and putting them in, but I thought, okay,
I want you to do it in the voice.
I'm not even good at doing inflections in my own voice. My own voice is flat, so let alone doing accents. Flash, you're not even a has-been, you're a never was. Flash, Conway's triple deke to beat the Hawks. Flash, Bombay getting injured as a pro, playing for the mini Ha-Ha Waves. Flash, Bombay playing free bar against Wolf Stanson and getting his leg hit. And then Flash, we got Judy the Cat saving Gunnar Stahl's shot for Team USA, and then they're the champions. I didn't bother with the third movie. Flash.
I got goosebumps already, sorry.
Well, that's good. Right, Flash. We close up on Bombay's face. It's present day, and it looks like he's stood in an ice rink. The camera pans out, and Bombay is actually in a suit next to the ice rink. He is a lawyer for the NHL. He is touring a representative from Hendrix Hockey Apparel to re-up their sponsorship deal for the entire league for the next season. That's how much of a big deal Hendrix is in this universe.
Yeah.
The contracts get signed. The Hendrix rep asked Bombay if he'd seen that a clip of Dwayne Robertson roping an Iceland player in the Junior Goodwill Games 1994 had gone viral again on Instagram. So he was putting in his like modern day touches, But the next related video on the Instagram page is a video of a Pee-wee hockey player, like right now in present times, intentionally injuring a player on the other team during the Pee-wee finals and causing a serious injury, all the while being guided to do so by his coach. And this was all captured on video, and it's like gone viral. And Bombay looks at it, and under his breath he says, "The Hawks." Bombay heads back to his law firm, and when he's there, he's called in by his boss and he's told that this viral video of the Hawks is damaging to the reputation of hockey and giving hockey a bad name. And Bombay is being assigned as a pro bono case to defend the Hawks coach in court to make this go away quietly. Bombay insists that he is a lawyer now, and it's clear that he's still bitter that he did not make it as a professional player. And as much as he's doing, like the law contracts, for hockey, he's not interested in like directly being involved in the game. Is this going into too much detail?
No, I love
No.
it.
Loving it.
Yeah,
I want to close my eyes and just
I feel
watch
like I'm
this.
watching the next film.
Now
That's
I'm
it.
ashamed how little details I had.
So Bombay resists at first with his history of the Hawks, but Bombay eventually goes to Minnesota. But while he's there, he visits Hans' old skate shop, and he visits the frozen pond from the first Ducks movie, and a flashback to his limo driving out on the ice. And as that's happening, the music plays. It's important that we feel this moment. You see how important the music is? Like, why don't they have that? Go in properly. Anyway, Bombay goes to visit the Hawks coach. So this is the coach that's, gone viral and whatever, and finds out that this coach had been assigned to coach the Hawks under community service, which is like a little throwback to, he got his DUI. And his conduct in the viral video, he's now been reassigned to do something else. So the Hawks are without a coach. Bombay goes to the Hawks practice to tell them that their season is over, and when he's there, he bumps into Adam Banks. Bombay learns that as the district lines have been redrawn once again, and due to modern gentrification, the Hawks players are now made up of kids from poorer neighborhoods, and they struggle with equipment and ability. We're switching them around. And Banks, he has a kid on the Ducks team. Banks actually went pro, but he retired early because he had consistent wrist injuries. Throwback to D2. Banks informs Bombay that the Hawks haven't won a championship since their loss to the Ducks in 1992. There are good kids on the team, but they just need guidance and some of that magic. Bombay sees some of the Hawks kids messing around in the same sort of way as the District 5 kids did at the beginning of D1, and we get flashes of some of the behavior sort of like mirroring with like flashes of the original movie and then, current day. Bombay makes a phone call to his office and he says he's going to take some of his owed leave. I have some unfinished business here in Minnesota. And as he says that, and this is like the end of the first episode, the camera pans out. He's in a diner. It pans out again. He looks across the restaurant and sees behind the counter Charlie's mum.
Sick.
We got the romance back. So as the season goes on, Bombay ends up coaching the Hawks. And this is where I'm going to go into the broad strokes of the season now. Coaches the Hawks. He teaches them about fair play and basically to not be douchebag bullies and to play with humility. The Hawks, they have to learn to play the right way, the Bombay way. But guess what? Guess who the coach is for the Ducks? It is grown-up adult McGill.
No way.
He must be
It's true. It happened. I'm making this happen.
It's true. It happened.
The documentary.
But guess what? He's the coach for the Ducks, but due to a separation in his marriage, he has a kid, but his kid lives with his wife, and his wife lives in the other side of town. So his kid plays for the Hawks. So there's tension there. There's tension. And there's conflict there, and Bombay has many run-ins with adult McGill about his new style of play and, many confrontations. But the Ducks, just like in Game Changers, they're a powerhouse team, and they're full-on douchebags now, as depicted currently in Game Changers. But they have the original green jerseys, but now instead of green, because they're the villains, they're in black and silver, which I think would look super dope, like with like the OG Duck, so someone make that happen.
Okay.
Original Ducks come back throughout the season to help Bombay with the Hawks. Conway, who is now the head coach for the Anaheim Ducks. Of course he is. He sat out of D2, the final, because, you know, Bombay always said he'd make a better coach than the player, and he followed that through all the way to the NHL, guys. So he comes back and visits Bombay, and he reminds him what it means to teach the kids to fly, you know, in a Hans type manner. And Bombay is reintroduced to Charlie's mum, and she now owns the diner that she used to work in. She worked hard, she made her way up the chain, and now she owns that shit. And they start dating again, but there is a rift at times because Bombay has a lot of money and she doesn't. And that's important, okay, because Bombay, he's had his struggles with the hockey. It's time for him to settle down and let's see his relationships, you know? Goldberg, who now lives in Philly, he finally moved there. He flies in to help train the goalie. Fulton, Portman, Kenny Wu, they teach the kids about being brothers that bash people. Averman, he owns the last remaining Blockbuster store in the whole of the USA, and he shows the Hawks inspiring sports movies from the 90s. Jesse Hall, he teaches the Hawks the Flying V, but as they're Hawks, they turn it into their own version, which I've called the Swoop and Loop.
Nice.
And then Dwayne, of course, comes in and he teaches the Hawks Roundup because that's important, you know, to have fun as well. So as the season climaxes, we've got Hawks versus Ducks in the playoffs. The final moment of overtime. Hawks have the puck. But they don't get that moment. They don't get where it's going to go into that moment where they're going to win. Because guess what? The Hawks lose because the Ducks cheat in the final minute of overtime. And the Hawks lose. But to end the season, however, there were scouts at the game. Scouts from the Junior Goodwill Games. And Team USA wants some of that Bombay magic one more time for the second season. And that's it.
That's amazing.
Love it.
Are you
Very,
getting into
very
writing?
good.
Are you getting into writing, or is this just something like it's just a fleeting thought? I'll just write it down.
I think this is just one of the very, very few things in life that I feel passionate about. So,
I have a couple of questions.
Let's get it.
So, what is a pro bono?
Pro bono is when a lawyer does a case for free for charity.
Got ya. Second question. Is Hans German?
I think it's from Holland, isn't he?
I've no idea. I just never known. And you brought him up and I was like, is he German? I don't know. You always talk with that little bit of accent. So yeah, that was my questions, but that was fucking great. I don't know how we are for F-bombs, but I can redo that. That was bloody brilliant, my friend. That was really good. I like that the Hawks need Bombay's help because obviously you go back to the very, very first scene and he is a Hawks player, like through and through. That's bringing it home right there.
Like in
and
his
there's so
blood.
much, yeah, exactly. And there's so much continuity from the films. It's just great. And of course, if there was anything to happen, of course, Averman would own a flipping Blockbuster or run a Blockbuster. That's just, I'll drink to that, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Does anyone have anything else, or should we go to the next number?
So Simon, you kept with the theme, the Ducks are no longer the good guys, right? So that is a game changer / Simon rewrite overlap. Why do you think that's important to do in this new series?
That's a good question. I was worried firstly that was a bit like ripping off Cobra Kai, doing it from the other perspective. But I think I like the idea of the Ducks being the bad guy because it's like you expect them to be the heroes, and actually it's all about perspective. Like if they could have reshot the first Mighty Ducks from the Hawks perspective, and you might see the Ducks as the villains, and you think, well, the Hawks have spent all of these years training and actually, you know, showing up and actually putting in the work, and they deserve to be champions because, you know, they've been doing this. So I think it's just interesting to flip the perspective, and it also seems like something that's very common like these kind of days. I mean, I was gonna put in, but I thought it would just make it too long, but they're definitely because they're having more female players like are more prevalent, which is great. I was thinking you could have some sort of love struck sort of tension with some like Ducks players and Hawks players, and you know, things like that to sort of add in some of like a B plot in there. But yeah, I didn't mention, but all of the jerseys are the same for every single team. No jersey is different because all of the jerseys in the movies are perfect. And when we get to season 2, if we all really enjoy this, we could do like I feel like I'm
Jersey
asking my
rating.
parents if I can have like a friend to sleep over when I'm a kid, you know. But if we enjoy this, maybe we could do a season 2, what we would do in the next season, you know. But definitely Trinidad and Tobago are making an entry, and they're definitely wearing the exact same.
All day.
So yeah.
That'd be
But
pretty special.
I appreciate it. Well, I can't choose a number because I know the numbers. So, Aaron, do you want to choose a number, my friend?
2.
2 is Connor.
I felt it. I knew it. So it's honestly, it's going to be tough to follow that up. I'll be honest with you. I'm going to go a different route. Although I do love Bombay, I love the character arc of the D1 to D3. I feel like Jason mentioned, there's a lot to fill in, kind of within post. You know, he works for Hendricks. Now he's a coach. Gets in a little bit of recruiting trouble. Yeah, who hasn't, right? To get to where he is now. A lot to fill in there, but my rewrite and preface. Anybody who's involved with Game Changers, I really like it. Max, the character Nick, he is hilarious. He's just perfect. With that said, starting it from Charlie's perspective, having Charlie be kind of the main perspective, everything else is kind of around him, and having maybe more of it be kind of the living as an adult kind of thing. This would be kind of the break from, for the most part, Game Changers seems to be for kids, where, you know, Cobra Kai, there's a couple other ones where they sort of want to wrap in the, you know, we'll say 30 odd somethings that are, you know, in a podcast talking about movies they like in the 90s, you know, as a demographic. But sort of having that be kind of the balance of having hockey still be kind of the main component, but, you know, it's Charlie's son or Charlie's daughter that is, you know, now on the team of age to start playing hockey. Having that again be followed, maintaining kind of that relationship with Bombay, having some of that tension, and having him be more of a late addition to the season versus kind of, you know, starting out in episode 2 or 3. But that would be my main difference, is now being Charlie being the one. And you sort of saw that in D3, where it was kind of his, we'll say, personal issues that sort of led the story. I think it's kind of the natural progression. And, you know, maybe there was some contract stuff, you know, some other things that maybe that was their original intent, but you know how Hollywood is, you guys. But that would be kind of that main difference for me personally, seeing that change. Then I think it's easier to incorporate. And then one thing I think they've done well is, you know, bring in some cameos, but having more of those roles. Jason, you mentioned it too. Simon, you mentioned it. Having, you know, sort of not a, hey, here we are on camera. It's, you know, Connie is somebody who they work with or comes into an episode. They have a conflict, you know, a sort of, well, we'll say a conflict they, you know, overcome. Having them be parents, even of other teams, you know, hey, we moved and now we're in, you know, we're on the Huskies. My son's on the Huskies. Very underrated jersey if we're going to get into that in D1. But, you know, having it, not necessarily everything's all perfect. We're all on the same team. You know, everything's the same as it was, but sort of having those pieces of kind of the Ducks as they're older, not necessarily having these perfect lives, and again, everything's sort of in line, sort of having conflict within those characters as they grow up. And seeing Averman, even in this story, I'll steal Simon's idea. He could still own a Blockbuster. That sounds actually pretty funny to me. But having those sort of, we'll say, character branches out instead of having a sort of an all new cast. With that said, I still think there's room in the Game Changers to sort of incorporate that from the outside in. I'm still holding out hope that Charlie shows up, in the end of or comes to the game, the championship game or something, and hey, we moved back or something like that. But I think the main focus, again, being on Charlie, brings that. You can go a bunch of different avenues and maybe appeal to the 30-somethings that are still talking about it.
Yeah.
One of the most important pieces, though, and Simon's mentioned this a couple times, every time there is the dramatic music from the Mighty Ducks, D1, D2, D3, you can feel it. And they did it in the last episode. It was like, oh, just do that more often. Just do that every time. There's a couple times where that's been just spot on. I think the music, if there was a little bit more, and that's not really a script rewrite, but more alignment in the orchestra music, man, I'm holding out hope for the championship in the States, as they call it, or the tourney. That would be perfect.
I love that. I love the idea of it being from Charlie's perspective. I thought that would be a great way into it as well. Like if they couldn't get Emilio Estevez, which would have been sad, but if they couldn't, they could have had like you just said, Charlie in the main role, and then Emilio coming in like Bombay, like in like the Hans kind of role, sort of coming in and giving in the wisdom and just sort of dropping in and out. So yeah, I really like that idea. I think that's really cool. Great pitch.
Yeah, I agree. I think like you mentioned, Connor, with D1, D2, D3, it was Charlie's story going all the way through, and then to not have him in Game Changers was a little bit strange. But I think if we did have him, it might be a little bit overpowering, which is where Bombay suits it a little bit better now. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Having Charlie in would be it's like the missing link for the 30-somethings, and maybe even I'm sure it would be strange for teenagers or kids watching the films now to see him as a child and then go straight to Disney Plus and watch him, and he's 20-something years older, and he's like, is that the same guy? He sort of looks the same. I'm sure there'd be a weird feeling, but yeah, I mean, he is the missing thing, isn't he?
Called Disney Adventures, put out by Disney, and they actually announced a D4. Do any of you remember that?
No.
And so Disney was like announcing D4 was going to be made, and the synopsis was don't quote me exactly, but it's almost a quote. It said, Charlie Conway is now grown up, but not acting like a grown up. And after getting sentenced to community service, he chooses to coach a hockey team where it's much more difficult than he envisions, where he calls on his old coach, Gordon Bombay, to help him. That's what Disney actually announced as a D4. But this was like years ago, like 2005.
Okay.
That would be good. That's basic. Yeah. That was basically some of like Connor's pitch there. With, a little bit twisted. I think that would have been great.
For the record, I'm not saying, Connor, you took it from the Disney Adventure magazine. Like nobody knows what that magazine is.
He's got it lined up just behind the camera.
It was like this really short little magazine. Like it was physically this small magazine that they sold at like grocery
I
store.
remember. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's awesome. Did you guys hear what the original screenplay for D3 was about? Where it was actually going to be two parallel timelines, and they were going to get is it Martin Sheen or Michael Sheen?
Michael Sheen's his dad.
Martin, yeah.
Is it? I thought it was Michael Sheen.
I think it's Martin. I'm pretty sure it's Martin.
Mr. Sheen.
Going crazy. Senor Sheen.
Well, Emilio Estevez's dad in real life was going to play like old age Bombay, and the idea was he was on his deathbed, and the ducks like were going to come as like, you know, sort of middle-aged characters, and then as they're like speaking to Bombay as he was on his deathbed, they were going to reminisce about when they played Iceland again. They played them in an like later on as like a annual, I don't know, like a ceremonial game or whatever, where the Ducks played them again, and then you got the original Ducks playing in this other timeline. And for some reason, Disney passed on that.
Flipping way ahead of their time, clearly. And just to apologize, I've got my laptop here. I do Google it. It's not Michael Sheen. I think he's a British actor. So my bad, and that's terrible because I met Martin Sheen like 2 years ago.
Excellent. Well, does anyone have any other comments or questions on Connor's pitch?
No, I really liked it, and I'm not just saying that just to be like, oh, I really liked it. I really did like it.
Yeah, me too. It was good.
And
Yeah, we're dope.
I don't know whether this is the time to say it or not, but and Simon, maybe you and I talked about this. My official prediction is there's going to be a cliffhanger at the end of the next episode, which is the final one of the season that has Charlie Conway. That involves Charlie Conway. Like, have you guys all watched Cobra Kai?
Yeah.
You know how they show Johnny's phone and Allie requests to be his friend?
Yeah.
I think we're going to see something like Bombay's phone and Charlie Conway called it, or maybe Bombay looks up to the stands after the state championship and Charlie's just kind of like looking down at him or something like that. I don't know.
I'd love it if they did this. I'd love it.
Just so many teasers, isn't there?
The joke's going to be on you. What I just said is going to be exactly season 2.
Hey, I'd take that season.
That's what it is.
Well, they said that the reason why they couldn't get Joshua Jackson is because of having a baby and COVID, but otherwise, like, he's been involved since the inception of it. So we'll see.
Listen, Disney are really good at this stuff. They can hide things and fill, shipped him in last week to do 2 scenes, and he'll be in the final episode before it's aired. Potentially. That's a possibility. Yeah, we can hope.
Well, we will find out. Hopefully, if they get renewed for a second season, and then we hopefully will see Connor's season play out. I'd love to see it. Well, we have 2 numbers left. We have 1 and we have 5. So, Theo, what do you want? 1 or 5?
I'm gonna go number 1.
Number 1 is Aaron.
Okay.
Right, just before you go, just so you guys know, the 1 to 5 was just alphabetical. There we go.
Okay.
Flipping heck.
How's that stormtrooper doing, Jason?
He's great.
Does he have a name?
I don't know. What should I name him?
Stormy.
I believe when you had him on the show and you were saying he's a bit short, you didn't quote the line, because aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
So it's essentially made for us. It's made for original Ducks fans, which is probably a bit of a disservice because, I mean, Disney are getting this whole big new audience for Game Changers, and I like we've all said, like, Game Changers is really good for what they're doing. Some of the characters are great, and the story arc seems to be sort of progressing as a series should. They're not jumping from, just winning one thing and then they're international superstars next. Like it's going at a good pace and it's really enjoyable. But this is like, forget all of that. It's all gone. Like, it doesn't even exist in this world. So brace yourself. So this follows the story of Banks and Conway, who both now work for the Ducks as professionals. Banks is a player and Conway is the head of player relations. I don't know if that translates into American, but he's just the guy that players speak to when they've got issues. So we spend the first 2 episodes understanding what they do and how they're both underappreciated, and they hate their time because they essentially have like token jobs for being inaugural Ducks, and that they're kept around for novelty essentially. But they've got not lifetime contracts, but what seems and comes across as lifetime contracts. So in this episode, as well as part of the B story, we're introduced to like a detention center I've not fully fleshed this out or anything, but the detention center holds kids. Like, again, I don't know which sort of language this translates into, but it looks after kids that can't go into prison yet, but they're naughty shits. So
Fulton would have probably.
yeah, exactly. So we just sort of get story of these guys working at the Ducks and being there, and then bit of the detention center, and two specific characters, but I've only sort of given story to one so far. Not so far. I'm not going to carry on writing this after this, but for the sake of this, a kid called Jerome Hall, in the detention center. So third episode, we sort of start with footsteps down a hallway and discover it's a hospital. And Charlie's visiting his mum, break out the tissues. So we quickly find out she's got cancer, which is shit and deep. And it's, again, quite adult and not very Disney, but this is made for us. So we're throwing all that kid shit out the window. Before he walks in, a doctor pulls him to one side and he explains that the situation's getting worse and sort of gives him a leaflet explaining, like, how things go. Here's what we can do, blah, blah, blah. So Charlie goes in to see his mom and having the conversation that he just doesn't like being at the Ducks. It's it's not fun. It's not the hockey. It's not the hockey that he loves and remembers or anything. And it's not like being at the Ducks, even though he is at the Ducks. Sorry, getting a dry throat.
He's getting a
little bit.
Is this how you're going to pitch it to? Is this how you're going to pitch it to Disney with the little beer breaks? I hope
100%. Me and Steve Brill are going to be sat there with a case of Coronas and all sorts. So his mum reminds him like how he's still great at anything he does, like any mum would, right? So she's just about to call him the Minnesota Miracle Man, but Charlie stops her and just sort of gets annoyed by it because he's not fulfilling what he wants to do. So Charlie sort of spends the rest of the episode wandering from place to place, just a bit mind blanked, just to places that bring back memories, especially for us as well. So like the square, the pond, all things that we will recognize from the films. Sorry. And then he eventually gets to the diner where his mum used to work, where he wants some food. And he ends up bumping into Banks's dad. And Banks doesn't speak to his dad anymore because after the whole situation, obviously, end of D1, Banks's dad was supporting the Hawks still. His brothers play for the Hawks, or he did do, and he was probably had some sort of investment because none of the other parents had one of them fancy jackets, right? So, so they don't get on anymore. And I never got his first name, so I'm just gonna call him Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks like sort of asked for a little of Charlie's time just to see how Adam's doing, and then it cuts to Banks. He's sort of being forced to play games for the reserves and like the second team, third team, and they're not very good, but he's expected to do so much because he's such a good player. Because he's sort of getting on the older side of things, he's just not in the first team. It's obviously struggling and it's taking his toll. And then that's the sort of end of their days. And then they both meet up for a drink. Q. At a bar called Dave's. Banks sort of hobbles into Charlie, sat at a table with half a bucket of beers he's made his way through, and Adam starts to air his frustrations of the day, and Charlie explains that his mum's cancer's getting worse and etc. So Adam starts to feel a bit stupid, and then Charlie starts to mention that he saw Adam's dad today. Adam starts getting a little annoyed. They're having a bit of back and forth bickering. They go on drinking, and then it gets to the point where the barmaid comes over and says like, look guys, you're too drunk, we can't keep serving you. And then they're like, whatever, go get the manager. So they get the manager, and off camera you just hear, you guys are on the wrong side of town. It's Averman. Not something he would say or has says, but it's Averman. Shock. So the next end episode, pick up the next episode where we left off, but the bar's closed now. It's just the three of them. They're sat around a table having beers. Averman is telling them how he came to own the bar through like ownerships with silent investors from the state, and why it's called Dave's. He clears up Dave is his middle name, and he used it when he came to Minneapolis because he was embarrassed about Lester, and he's not used Les since leaving Eden Hall. He's Dave. He is Dave. The bar is full of sports memorabilia and trophies because he sponsors a state league and teams and gets involved with things. And Averman sort of like just has to take him through the journey of reminding them that they're two of the best things to come out of Minnesota hockey. And if they really love it, like they should just leave the Ducks and start their own team and have fun again. So they leave, and Adam jokingly sort of suggests, like, where would we even find players? On a pond? It's not even like we've got community service and just get given players. And then Averman's still trying to like suggest that they do it. So he's like, you should just find people that need hockey, because you clearly need it, but other people need what hockey would give to them. Anyway, we cut to the detention center where it's sponsor day. So if you get sponsored by an employee, you get released under their supervision. Some people are leaving, some people are coming back who just like couldn't stay out of trouble. Jerome from New York puts his name up for sponsorship. And some people just sort of like dampen his hopes and say like, look, we've been on the list for 7 months, nothing happens. You just like nothing happens. So we cut to Charlie's office. Banks walks in and says, you called for me? You couldn't just text me? Like sending people to come and get me now? Just only joking. But Conway has like a serious look on his face and says like, I think we should do it. We should do the state league. I've not decided whether it's like a pub league yet or like a sort of lower level, just a whatever league. So anyway, they're going back and forth about, look, we're under contracts, we've got families, we need to, like, we can't just, or I can't just make this decision. But Conway is like, I'm doing it. Like, come with me. Like in D3, where Fulton's like, I'm going back to college. Like, we can't just keep doing this. Conway's still got the mentality of like, follow me. Like, don't leave me to do this alone. So anyway, they part ways. Banks stays playing, and Charlie just sort of hands in his notice or hands in his resignation and leaves. And then next episode starts with Jerome in detention center, blah, blah, blah. He's getting into fights and stuff. And then we cut to Charlie, and he's with his mum. And he's explaining like he's starting from scratch. He's really excited. And he's got a bunch of things to do because the league registration needs to be submitted like fairly soon, or the team's submission needs to be submitted soon. And then you get episode filler of like Banks with the reserves playing with them. And Charlie goes to meet up with Averman to list out all the things they need, like essentially laying out the plot for the rest of the next episode. So Averman lists out like you need players, you need a rink, you need equipment, and you need a kit sponsorship. Avon brings up a bunch of references, like, again, just sort of Easter eggs for us. So when he's like, you need players, remember? You found a guy in the middle of LA, in the middle of a tournament, like when we needed him most, like you can find players. And he's like, you need a place to play. We had a pond. Like, I'm sure you're going to be able to do better than that. Just loads of little things like that. But the kit sponsorship might be a bit of an issue, but like you just cross that bridge when you get to it. And then Conway's like, when I get to it, or when we get to it, and everyone's like, no, this is all you. I own a bar. Like, do you think I was just going to come with you? We're adults. Like, what are you on about? Anyway, well, on top of that, Averman throws in, I can help, but let's be honest. I had no business playing for the USA after wear a cardigan for a uniform 2 years ago, 2 years before. Sorry. So Averman hands Charlie the newspaper and points out the sponsorship deal with the detention center and says, "Look, I had 2 kids a year that come and live upstairs and they work at the bar. So that sort of encompasses the story B to story A. That's their link." So Charlie goes to pick 2 kids out. It sounds like a dog rehoming center, doesn't it? Just going to pick 2 kids. But Charlie's running it down the list, and nothing's sort of standing out to him. And then he gets to a J Hall 9 months. So J Hall 9, like Jesse Hall number 9. 9 months being the time he'll require sponsorship for. So it's sort of like a hockey season, I think. I mean, that's how long the soccer season runs for us in the UK. So I'm just sort of making that link. They meet. Everything's sort of frictional, but everything feels right to Charlie. So he's like, fuck it, I'm taking this kid. Oh, screw it, I'm taking this kid. I'm going to give him a chance. Sorry. Just going to scroll down. Just for fun.
Through.
Oh, just a little bit. Just one of the lines that this Jerome kid throws in is like, so you're picking up kids to sponsor to play for your made up hockey team. Man, you really want to have your cake and eat it, huh? But yeah, silly lines just to throw in, just for yeah. So yeah, next couple episodes is just like the kids are just into the outside and working at the bar, and essentially like learning a bit of hockey and just the basics. So Charlie then finds the Ice Palace, but deals with the receptionist to put practice time in and sort of find out information on kit to use, and gets training with the team and just a bunch of random players, enough to scrimmage or, just make training sessions and sort of make it worth it. And then it gets to a couple of days before registration and Charlie doesn't have a full team. He's just like put everything into this, left a professional job at the Ducks, and it's gone downhill. So he's drinking typically at Averman's bar again, Q, explaining to Averman how just nothing's worked. And Averman, in typical Averman fashion, says, Charlie, maybe you've forgotten how to recruit players. Why don't you take a look at my menu? So picks up the menu and says, like, Dave, I don't think drinks are going to help in this situation. He said, just read them. So Charlie starts to read them out, and he's got like cocktails. He's got the woo woo woo. He's got the I'm no girl. He's got the Bash Brothers. He's got the last minute winner, and he's got the cake eater. And then Averman starts to just have a bit of a singular, silent dialogue of being the best sports bar in town. I get people coming through every now and again. So I thought you could do with some help. And then someone starts banging on the bar, and you just say, "Don't you know everything's on fire?" Yeah, exactly. Fulton and Portman are there chilling, turn around, have a beer. They come over, and then you hear someone shout over, "Have you lost that old Ducks whistle?" Connie's a few tables back having a drink with Kenny Wu and Guy. And then Averman says, like, I'm pretty sure my local pastry delivery is due any second now. In walks Julie the cat. She's like a pastry artist genius in real life right now, right? I think so.
Oh, okay.
just making like a real link there. And then like all of them like hugging, rejoicing and stuff. And then we sort of get a cut to Adam, still with the Ducks, still annoyed, still getting treated like crap. And then we head back to the bar. Drome and the other kids sees how like happy everyone is to like see each other, and they start to their characters start to break down a little bit. Or the shell of the character starts to break down a little bit. So it's a bit more welcoming. And then I think Charlie says, Averman, you've got cake eater on the menu, but Adam isn't here. And Averman's like, yeah, that was a tough one, but the drink's not named after him. And then you just hear, look at this suit and tie cake eater. Terrible accent, but Jesse walks in, and Charlie's like, Averman, you've done me a solid. You pulled this out the bag. Like I don't know where you found all these players from, all these people, but you've done me a favor. So they're all catching up, talking about old times and whatever else, and they all say like, look, we're going to come and play for you. But everyone's got commitments. Everyone's got kids and families and jobs and other commitments. So not everyone can make every game. I'm just sort of you. I mean, that was the big pop of the series sort of thing. So bringing them back in, I think if we just threw them all into one game, it just wouldn't have the same effect. So you've got to like spread them out over games, like a couple of players here, a couple of players there. Anyway, Julie mentions a husband might be able to play, and Charlie sort of jokes and says like, "I hope he's got a triple D cup his sleeve." And she's like, I'm pretty sure he's got some fancy moves. How do you think he got me? Foreshadowing. Anyway, move on. Next episode. Charlie gets the team registered. Character development for Jerome and the other kid. Charlie visits his mum more. Banks find this episode is more about Banks. So he essentially agrees to meet his dad after however long, and they sort of iron things out after arguing for ages, and his dad just grovels and apologizes. Bank explains that he can't afford to leave the Ducks, but he hates it there now, and that sort of scene ends there. Next episode, or that episode ends there. Next episode, the league starts. Hockey heavy episode to make up for the lack of gameplay. I'm sorry, we're getting there. Don't worry. And the announcement of the big announcement from this episode is the team will be called District 5. They can't call themselves the Ducks. The Ducks are a professional team who they just come from. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. And then at the end of this episode, Banks finally like just hands in his notice at the Ducks, and it ends there. Next episode, Banks turns up to play for Charlie's team and is met by like lawyers, the Ducks lawyers, who tell him like, "Look, you can't just retire from hockey and then go and play hockey for a registered league. Like, it just doesn't work like that. It's illegal. So if you go and play, look, we're going to take you to court. We're going to rinse you for everything you've got." And Banks just sort of like brushes them off and goes and plays, because he's like, you'll get the feeling like he's just had enough. So next episode, D5 are terrible, and the new kids are struggling. The episode ends with everyone just exhausted and injured because everyone's old and just not hockey players anymore. Not in a terrible way. Like, we're still going to get good hits from like Fulton Reed and Kenny Wu, and like they're all going to sort of have their moment, but just not cohesive, and it's just not gelling as good as you would hope. So anyway, he brings the kids on, and the kids get this like story arc within this episode for them to become more important players, because it's not just about the old guys. And then Charlie isn't a player, by the way. Charlie is the coach. So Charlie gives Jerome this play, like, look, you do this, blah, blah, blah. Goes and gets the winner. All the success goes to Jerome. And Banks couldn't play because he was at court. Next few episodes are like the knockout cup games, which D5 get through. Again, I know the pacing of this is all over the place. I didn't write it all. But anyway, so the next few episodes are the knockout cup games, which D5 get through. But they seem to like lose a player each game to more injuries. Like Guy, Hall, and Portman are all out, and the semifinals next. But the kids have been doing all the winning, so it's sort of balancing out. Start of the next episode, Charlie's with his mum at the hospital, and she's getting really weak. And he starts to explain like how he feels he's come full circle, and helping these kids is so important, and how it's not over for them, like when the sponsorship is up, but they're down on players. The D5 story isn't going so great, and he's just like desperate for the kids to feel the same feelings that Charlie had as a kid, because they deserve it even more. And then his mum finally gets it, and she says like, you've already been like the spirit of the team, and that's what's made you a champion. You wear your heart on your sleeve, and people like Bombay and Coach Orion saw that, and that's why they never gave up on you. You motivated this team to do everything they've done, and they can do anything. You are a real Minnesota miracle, man. And they both hug, and the camera face the black, reminisce over old times, blah, blah, blah. So Banks is speaking to his legal representative outside of the courts on the phone, just saying like, you know, we're going into court, like, where are you? And they're just like, look, someone's going to be there shortly. And still with the camera on Banks, we just hear a voice saying, "Mr. Banks." And then Adam turns around, cut scene, goes to black. Cut to Charlie on the phone trying to fix the player situation. And he's on the phone to Julie saying, "Look, we're really down on players. I know you said your husband can play. Like, is there any chance he can play in the semi-final and the final if he's not busy, because we just need him?" She's like, "Yeah, okay, I'll ask." He puts the phone down. Banks bursts into the locker room just before the game with his dad and says, "I'm in." Charlie's obviously surprised. He's like, "I thought you didn't speak to your dad." And he's like, "Look, we sorted it out." The team are all starting to get excited and cheer. And he's like, your dad fixed this?" And he's like, and before Banks could even answer, we hear Adam Banks is one of the original Mighty Ducks. He made the team millions in shirt sales, jumped through hoops for the team, and has been loyal since day one of joining. Even if it was reluctant, he did his duty. I reminded them what exploitation is to someone so publicly loved, and they backed down. Bombay? In walks Bombay. Charlie's dad rang my office and asked for the best sports defender. He wasn't in, so they sent me, i.e. Bombay. He then proceeded to write a check, but I let them know it had already been paid in advance. $12,489 to be precise, paid by a Mr. C. Conway to Ice Palace Independent. Also, here's a check for that same amount. Consider it a loyalty rebate. I own Ice Palace. I just let Hans' grandson run it. I also co-own Averman's Bar as a silent investor. So, Jerome, you got a full-time job waiting for you when you want it. I also see you didn't get my letter about the kit sponsorship too. So I had Hans Jr. ship it over in a car. He's got a big box, green jerseys, yellow strip, purple strip, but it doesn't have the Ducks. Well, it could have the Ducks logo, but it's got D5, but it's the same colors. So Charlie's just a bit like overwhelmed, like unbelievable. All this time you didn't say hello, and he just said, "Look, Charlie, I had to let you be your own guy. Like, this is sort of like a breaking the fourth wall. This is your story. It was never about me. You had to become a man without a dad around, without anything. Like, this is about you, as it always was in the films." So they go out, win the game. Final episode is next. So we start with Charlie in the car with Bombay on the way to the hospital, and it's all very emotional. And when they get over there, the doctor says it's a matter of days. It's all like very sad, and as it normally is. They leave, and it's they leave the hospital, and it's like a very cinematic sort of last goodbye, which is awful, but that's how it is. So we cut to the locker room before the final game. There's loads of other things like filler in between that episode. Cut to the final locker room, and Julie the cat calls and says, "Look, I can't make it. The kid's broke his arm, and I'm playing football, but her husband is on the way with a goalie friend." So Charlie's just stressing out, kind of players, this, everything seems to have sort of peaked at the last episode, sorry. And there's no more luck that can come their way because they've had it all in the last episode. 10 minutes before they're due to play the final. By the way, I haven't thought of the villains and the opposite teams or anything like that, but that can be sorted. 10 minutes before they're due to play, the ref comes in and just says, "Look, we're going out in 10 minutes." I'd like to wish that we could get the same refs just for nostalgia, but anyway. Bombay reminds a stressed Charlie how good of a player he was, and proceeds to convince him to lace up. After everything that's happened, you've been made to lead from the front. Get your skates on, kid. Charlie starts to get ready, and there's a knock at the door. Banks answers, and he's shocked. No one can see the person other than Adam. Half opens the door, and he's like, "Julie's husband?" Gives him a massive hug. And all you hear is, "Where's Captain Duck?" Flipping gonna stall, mate. No messing about. Blonde hair, same long blonde hair, walks in, and Charlie's just like, "What?" Just completely mind blown. Obviously, foreshadowing from earlier, by the way, Of course, he's got some fancy moves. He's got Julie the cat, and they kissed in D3, but he was a different player, and it's sort of just like merging all that.
That's what I thought it were going to be. That guy walking in.
No, not
Yeah.
Scooter. No one needs Scooter. We need good score right now. We need some players.
Glove side.
Yeah. So he's like, Charlie's like, this is amazing, but I mean, it's a shame you can't play in goal. Like, we need a goalie. And as Gunnar walks in, who's sort of like blocking the rest of the screen, the camera is coming over Charlie's shoulder. So all you can see is Charlie's shoulder and Gunnar Stall. Gunnar walks in and Banks is still there, just like with his arms around someone. And then Charlie's just like, what? Adam pushes him away a little bit. Who stood there? Goldberg. Has to be. Anyway, just all the like emotions and all the good scenes coming through. Silly lines like, flipping it, you did fall out of cheeseburgers, didn't you, Goldberg? Obviously, he's lost weight. He looks great. Come on in. They get on the ice and win, and that was all I wrote. Very short. I'm sorry.
Wicked.
I feel like I just binged the whole season.
You basically,
Sorry.
So I was,
loved it.
I was like the high level producer, and then Aaron just like wrote the season, including dialogue, cinematography.
I know. I'm so embarrassed. I wish I could go again.
Honestly, like, I think I even text Simon one morning. I woke up really early one morning just by accident. I couldn't sleep, and I was just like, flip it, I'm writing this thing. And I've just been writing it since like Tuesday or something, just on and off, just like here and there. And then earlier today, I was like, shit, I've not thought of a villain or the opposite teams or anything like that. But yeah, we could have been here all night. I'm sorry.
Sometimes the villain is, ourselves.
I
like it.
Yeah.
I think you need to finish it, man. Like, you fleshed it so much. You need to just keep
I
going
know.
and just
Fill in the details.
You can't be done
Yeah.
now.
Send it to Steve, our Steve.
How many episodes were you thinking were going to be in the season?
Maybe
Like
like 10 or 12. Yeah. Well, I mean, when you watch something like, I think Cobra Kai's episodes are like 45, 50 minutes long. Is that right?
They're
Yeah,
pretty
they're
short.
longer.
I always think.
okay.
I swear with Cobra Kai, whenever it's finished, you're always like, oh shit, but then you just put the next one straight on. But they feel like a lot more compact than normal stuff. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I just enjoy it that much.
Exactly.
Yeah, same.
like 5
it
minutes
feels
long
like
to me.
5 minutes. Yeah. But I mean, even if they are like 50 minutes long, that's like an hour almost.
Yeah, plenty.
So
That's
you
good
can
math.
get a lot done in an hour. And if you've got 10 hours to do this, it's plenty.
I really
Well,
like how
maybe.
it was like fully focused on the adults, and it was much more of like a drama than it being like sort of Disney-fied, for like lack of a better term. Because I think Disney is complete. I mean, if we think about it, it really has a massive repertoire now because it's like absorbed all these other companies. Like when you look at what content on Disney Plus, it's like fully varied, like in a way that I was never thinking it would, but like hoping it would do. And so like you could imagine these, I mean, the way you were sort of describing it, you'd imagine it more like a Netflix kind of drama, but there's a place for that on Disney Plus now. And I would be all for that. I'd be all the way in on a version of the Ducks like that. So yeah, I thought it was awesome, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Yeah, it was a journey. I felt some highs, felt some lows. I got a little teary eyed for a moment there. But I do actually really, really like the concept of, and this will sound weird, but like no kids, like that would be like totally divorced from the what the Ducks was, but
Would be.
Yeah.
that would actually be a really cool step to say, it's just adults kind of thing. It's really cool, actually.
I would have said that the thing with this, what was like more of a challenge, I think, than even writing it was trying to write something that was so different. So it wasn't just like someone else's that's here. Because if we'd have all, and they've all been, do you know what I mean, pretty diverse. So the fact that you went in a completely different route like it was a good thing because these could have all ended up easily being very similar. And I know now that mine isn't like yours. So yeah, good work, man. I enjoyed it. I want to see that shit.
Yeah, I mean, me too. But whether it will happen or not is a different story.
I was when I was cooking earlier, I was listening to D2 just to try and just in case I'd forgotten any little moments, and I just listening to that Trinidad game and the commentary. It's so good. Like, they're just the little bits that they're missing from Game Changers. Like, I know that no one's commentating for Pee Wee hockey, but that didn't bother us in '92. It doesn't need to bother us now. Just do it. Like,
it was weird. My friend come round last night and I was just like telling him about this, and he goes, "Oh, let's watch Mighty Ducks." And we watched all three last night. I fell asleep halfway through D3, but we watched all three. And I never noticed before, but England aren't in the World Games, and I never clocked until why. I goes, maybe they'd be too close to America, the like character wise that it needed to have there's obviously lots of countries that's not in it. But it's just weird that Britain weren't in it, but I didn't even clock that until last night. I thought, where's the British guys like a lion on the chest or something? The lion heart. I don't know. Yeah, I only clocked that last night. No matter how many times I've watched that.
I've never thought about that ever. I think I've always just been so invested in Team USA, I just haven't cared. But that's a really good point.
Because we're dog shit at ice hockey.
So, last but not least, number 5, Theo. Let's hear it, man.
Let's do this shit. And obviously, we only had a couple of days to write it, so it's not genius. There's lots of plot holes. But yeah, let's see what I came up with. The challenge. So, again, there's a little bit of it's like a synopsis / a little bit of script scenes and stuff like that. But I'll just get straight into it. So following the events of D3, the Mighty Ducks stayed together for a few more years, and after graduating, all went off to pursue various professional careers in hockey, both on and off the ice. Gordon Bombay continued his career and stayed as a high-up board member in the world of young people's hockey. However, the Ducks, as we know them, eventually ceased to exist. So, upon all going off to pursue their new careers, the Ducks all came to an agreement that although we will always be the Ducks couldn't be the name of any team replaced with a new younger set of kids every few years. The Mighty Ducks were unique and special, a one-time Pee Wee hockey team. And even though they would always fly that flag and always be known as the Ducks, the team would begin and end with the roster that we all knew and loved. So after a very respected professional hockey career, Adam Banks is forced to retire due to a wrist injury, just like you, Simon. And with Gordon and the rest of the old team's blessing, Adam Banks decides he's going to go into coaching and he's going to put together a brand new team of Ducks on their 25th anniversary. I think that's about the right 25th anniversary. I think the time is a bit different. It's a bit more, but it's just a nice number, isn't it? So wanting to keep very much to the origins of the original team, when creating this new team of Ducks, Adam and Gordon both decide to back and rebrand the most underprivileged and underfunded team in Minnesota. And an all-new ragtag bunch of kids who all have great potential but all need some guidance are chosen to be the new age of Ducks. And we see many parallels with these new Ducks and the old Ducks as Adam trains them and Bombay acts as their wise old overseeing hands / Mr. Miyagi style mentor. So he's always going to be around, but it's very much Banks' team. So word soon spreads that a new team of Ducks is on the rise, led by Adam Banks, and the show starts off as a wholesome story of all these young kids all coming together, all coming into their own, and we slowly start to learn who they all are individually, their backstories and their personalities. We discover their strengths and weaknesses, and how they all learn in classic Ducks fashion how to work together as a team and fly together. However, within a few weeks of this team becoming a thing, there's word of a new team on the rise, a team that's been taking out every other team in the Pee Wee leagues, but not just beating teams, injuring and maiming teams like some kind of kill squad. We're gonna have a scene. Get ready for this. We have a big Ducks anniversary celebration scene where a bunch of the old Ducks come back to swear in the new Ducks. Gordon Bombay is doing a big inspiring speech about teamwork when all of a sudden the moment is cut short. And we see that the new notorious team that we've all heard so much about have turned up to crash the party. We see by the jerseys they wear, they're called the Bemidji Buckshots. Their logo, a Public Enemy style crosshair. And in the middle of the target is the outline of a bird, but not just any bird, a duck.
Love that.
Averman's going to drop a line like, "Oh, well, that's subtle." Oh, like when he says, "Oh, that's inspiring." Well, that's subtle. So they all wear black, obviously, but with a bit of red and also a flash of real tree duck hunting camo throughout. They look badass. As Gordon and the rest of the Ducks and the Ducks juniors look over to them, the buckshots let the Ducks know that they have them in their crosshairs and that they're gunning for them this season. It'll be a scene very reminiscent of when USA first meet Iceland and when Rocky first meets Mr. T, when he first meets Clubber Lang. So security escort all the kids away. The Ducks see this gnarly-looking team of kids, and they look fucking gnarly. They're like raggo kids. These are kids that when you're young, you're scared of. You don't want nothing to do with these kids. They're a ghetto-ass team of kids.
I hope it's written just like that in the script.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, I just got bullet points. So the Ducks see the gnarly-looking team of kids, and they all just brush it off that they're a jealous rival team, and they continue to enjoy the rest of their event. Then that night, a bunch of the OG Ducks and Bombay are all enjoying drinks and catching up, very much like that scene in Game Changers. In the scene, we've got Averman, Connie and Guy, Kenny Wu, both Bash brothers, Goldberg's there, Dwayne's there, Ruiz Mendoza, Julie the Cat, Adam Banks and said Averman are all catching up and having a good time. Very much like that scene in Game Changers. I thought that was a dope scene. And then it's now last orders. The bar's pretty quiet. They're all just there. They're not pissed or anything. They're all just there enjoying. It's last orders, but they've not had a catch up for a while. Everything's winding down, and we heard a jingle of the doorbell, click, cling. And when someone walks in, the team turn around and they all look who walks in. Kenny Wu, Portman, Dwayne, Ruiz, and Julie the Cat all look confused, but the rest of the original Ducks seem to know this person's face. We hear his voice. I heard you were all in town. I heard you also met my team today. The camera pans round to reveal a face we, the audience, also recognise, although it's distinctly changed since we last saw him. It's Dave Karp. Goldberg, Karp, is that you? Karp, I'm surprised you even remember me after you all cut me loose. The team look confused. They can barely even remember what happened to Karp. So it's been years since he last saw him. Karp sits down and he takes a freshly poured, untouched beer from the table in front of him, which happens to be Portman's. Portman, what? Who the hell is this guy? And steps up. Fulton holds him back. Karp says, I could ask you the same question. It's the same question I asked when I saw you calling yourself a duck all them years ago. All the Ducks stay standing and concerned at Karp's obviously defensive demeanour. And Karp says, I understand I've been out of town, and it's been a long time since you last saw me. Probably seems like a million years to all of you, but to me, it just seems like yesterday. Connie, what happened to you? You just disappeared. Then Guy, I don't even remember us having a way of contacting you after the stage. After stage, you just left because he's not in the second film. There's no mention of him.
Got hit in the head, didn't he?
Karp begins to explain his story. So we find out that the summer after the Ducks won the States, Karp had to temporarily move away to Florida after his grandma fell suddenly ill. And after a couple of weeks of being there, she died. Him and his single mum had to stick around to make funeral arrangements and tie up loose ends for a few months. And then they ended up staying there for a few months, just him and his mum. And whilst they were there, his mum started drinking heavily and Karp felt very neglected. His mum had always had a problem with drink and depression, but this was something that really tipped her over the edge. Feeling alone and in a strange place he'd never been to before, with no friends, he was really looking forward to getting back and rejoining his team. When he eventually gets back, it was just after the start of the new hockey season, just after the start. So his first night, he heads over to the Ice Palace rink for training, excited to rejoin his friends, only to find the doors closed, the lights off, and nobody's there. His smiles and excitement turn to discourage. So he heads home and he thinks, I'll just catch up with him at school tomorrow. Maybe practice is on a different night now. But when he gets to school, none of the Ducks can be found. He's looking all over for him. So he asks around a few people, like, yo, where are the Ducks? And he goes, haven't you heard? Pull out a full-page spread. A kid shows him a full-page spread of Sports Illustrated magazine, showing a 2-page spread, Team USA hockey. All his old Duck friends and some new random members that he don't recognise, all standing together. So in the time he's been away, Peter and Terry have now fallen in with different crowds. They're not that bothered about hockey anymore. Tommy and Tammy have both gone off to continue their figure skating. Everybody had moved on except for Karp, who had come home after a tragic few months to find everything that he had gone. Saw all his former teammates and coach on cereal boxes while he has to go home and see his mum on the couch passed out with a bottle in her hand. So he did try out for other sports. He tried out for football and baseball, but all the other sports, but he was just too out of shape to do them. All he could ever do was hockey. That was all he was ever good at. And his team that he loved, that had always told him that Ducks fly together, had all flown off without him. So I've always having a bad temper, Karp. He always had a temper. And now with no one around him to reel him in when he gets too crazy, he finds himself in a downward spiral that landed him in a detention centre, a juvenile detention centre, and then later on in jail. So whilst in jail, He shed all of his extra pounds, pumped weights, and he got jacked. Because if you see him now, he's jacked, this guy. He heard on the news, so he got jacked in jail. Where are we? So with oh yeah, and whilst all the Ducks were going off to get college scholarships and later becoming professional hockey players, he was in and out of jail and prison with nothing but all the time in the world to think about how his life would have been different if he'd have gone on to play for Team USA. So shortly after coming out of jail for his most recent incarceration, he heard on the news that the Ducks were making a comeback, and he saw this as an opportunity to get his revenge. He collects a big money debt that's owed to him for not writing some people out when he got locked up, and he uses a big chunk of it to set up and fund his own team. He knows the exact place to do his recruiting. Back at the Bemidji Juvenile Detention Center. Who's from Minnesota here? It's someone from Minnesota, and they can. Bemidji is like one of the worst crime areas in Minnesota, from what I researched.
I mean,
Bemidji.
You're talking about Bemidji.
Bemidji, yeah, the Bemidji Buckshot. So he goes back to the Bemidji Juvenile Detention Center where he once attended, and he convinces the officials that he's turned his life around. He wants to make a difference in the community, and by getting their most violent kids to play hockey, he can get them back on a straight and positive path. It's all bullshit, of course, but it works. And after a few weeks, he's manufactured a hockey team with one sole purpose: to destroy the Ducks. A pack of wild dogs, a whole team of Bash brothers, all under leash of ex-con and ex-Duck Dave Karp. News reports,
fucking amazing.
News reports, podcasts, and kids watching viral social media videos that people have filmed at hockey games all fill us in of the individual members of the Buckshots, all handpicked by Karp specifically for their notorious and unpredictable behaviour. And we'll all see all the different characters amongst the team and really get to know who they are. I want us to really get to know these guys as well. A bunch of kids who are just as interesting in the Ducks, just a lot more ghetto. So the series will build up to Karp and his team gunning for the Ducks, injuring and taking out every other team in the league. We also see them go against another well-known team of badasses and current state champions, the Hawks, who are now all being coached by former Hawk member Peter McGill. That one's for you, Simon. Still wearing the same jersey as well. No change, but the Hawks are the top badass team like they always were. Now they're back at the top. So we'll also continue to follow the new team of Ducks. Oh, where are we at? Hang on, I've lost my thing now, getting excited.
This is absolutely amazing.
This is crazy.
So, player McGill, so he now runs the Hawks. So we're going to have a dope scene where we see the two big bads go against each other, the Buckshots versus the Hawks, in a very heated match where the Hawks put up a really good fight at first, but eventually just get decimated, showing that in the time that the Ducks are training to get good, Karp is also wasting no time in turning his team into not only violent goons, but also a very good hockey players, really building up to what a problem the Buckshots are going to be for the Ducks when they inevitably go against them in the final episode. So we'll all continue to follow the new team of Ducks to get to know all those kids individually as well and understand their fear of going up against such a notorious team. Very much like the Cobra Kai thing, although we've got like the nice kids and the evil kids, we still get to know them all individually. So we still kind of like both because we know both teams. So towards the end of the series, Adam Banks gets really wary of how the Buckshots want to not only beat the Ducks in the finals, but also violently take them out and considers pulling them out of the States altogether. He's just like, I don't want to put my kids out there with them because they're animals. So at this point, however, the Buckshots, they're having the time of their life. They've gone from being held up in a juvenile detention center in Bemidji, whatever we call it, to travel around as a successful and notorious hockey team. And they fear that without a chance to beat the Ducks, Karp will just disband them and send them back where he found them, connecting us with the audience and their situation a little bit more, because they're like, yo, if we don't go against the Ducks that would be manufactured to do, then we have no purpose. We're just going to get sent back to Juve. So behind Coach Karp's back, the Buckshots decide to sabotage Adam Banks before he has the chance to pull the Ducks out of the game. And in the middle of the night, they cut the brake fluid to his car, which results in Adam being in a huge car crash the following morning, leading to him being laid up and unconscious in hospital. Nobody is none the wiser that the Buckshots did this to Banks' car, and also have no idea that he was planning the Ducks out of the tournament. So this is very important. He's now unconscious in hospital, so no one knew that he were going to pull the Ducks out of there. So Gordon, thinking fast on his feet and unable to coach the Ducks himself due to some legal bullshit. I just wrote some legal technical bullshit. He can't coach it for some reason. He makes a call to draft in a last-minute coach for the Ducks, an old friend, former Duck, and current coach of the professional adult Mighty Ducks, Charlie Conway. Another similarity with you there, Simon. So this will be Charlie's big comeback episode. And whilst Adam is laid up in hospital, Charlie takes over and trains the kids for one weekend before the final big game against the Buckshots. So The night before the big game, Corp finally finds out about Adam's accident, and he finds out that it's his kids that's done it, and feeling like very responsible for what's happened, he decides to go and visit Adam while he's unconscious in hospital. He doesn't like Adam, he doesn't like the Ducks, but he didn't want anyone to die. That wasn't his intention. He wanted to beat him and beat him on the ice. He didn't want to kill him. Especially didn't want to kill Adam. So he just builds up to there's still some good in him, and he still has some sort of hazy loyalty to Adam as a former friend. So while he's sat next to Adam's bed and Adam is unconscious, we hear the squeaking of a wheelchair roll past the room and then roll back on itself. We hear a voice, Carp. Carp looks up, and we see in the wheelchair is a doctor, and we see the name of his badge, Tommy Duncan, Dr. Thomas Duncan. Carp notices him instantly, and in the room rolls his old Team Duck member, Tommy. This is the first time that we see Carp interact with one of the original Mighty Ducks who didn't go on to become part of Team USA. Tommy explains to him that after going into figure skating, he ended up suffering a real bad injury with his back in his late teens, and it cut his career short and it wound him up in a wheelchair. We found out that he too went through a bit of a downward spiral after the accident, drinking and not taking care of himself. But he realized that even though he couldn't walk anymore, he still had his brain and his heart, and that it wasn't too late for him to look into a different profession. And that's when he decided to study medicine. He said that in becoming a doctor also inspired his sister Tammy to study medicine as well. She now works at the hospital as a very high up heart and brain surgeon who saved the lives of many people over the years. Tommy also tells him that it was his mom that made him stop playing for the Ducks and to go into figure skating when he would have rather played hockey. And that in the end, it wound up in paying the ultimate price. And he knows that he can't hate his mom because sometimes life just deals you a shit sandwich. And it's about how we as people handle those situations. And it's our choice. We all have a choice, and we can't stay bitter and let the hate and anger take us over, because we have to realize it's never too late to make a change. So Carp's going to leave the hospital now with a change of heart. He's seeing Tommy in the wheelchair, being positive after everything that's happened to him and not holding grudges against people for a life that could have been. And also seeing Adam unconscious, laid up in hospital. He feels a bit differently about things. But either way, tomorrow morning, his team that he's trained to do nothing but play hockey and destroy the Ducks are going up against them in the morning. And although he's starting to feel differently about the situation, he kind of just needs to stick to his original plan. So the following morning, the final episode plays out. The Ducks, coached by Charlie Conway and Bombay on side, against the Buckshots, coached by Carp. This is the final big episode, and all of the original cast members are all going to come back to make cameos against the crowd. We've got lots of people like doing shoot interviews off camera, talking about how it's like the big game that the Ducks are going to be playing. So we've got all the original Ducks back, and we also see that Averman and Russ Tyler are two of the special guest commentators for the game. They were always guys that like to talk a lot, so I thought they'd be good on commentary. The first half of the game, Carp keeps encouraging the cheap shots, and the Ducks are getting beat badly, with 4 of the Ducks all in the injured box by the first half. The second half starts, and the Buckshots go straight back into attack mode. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of his eye, Carp notices somebody being escorted to the side of the ring in a wheelchair and a neck brace. It's Adam Banks, looking much better than he did yesterday. He's being pushed by Tammy, and Tommy also pulls up alongside him in the wheelchair. He notices that over to him walk Jesse, Terry, and Peter, and they all hug and shake hands. And of course, they're all wearing the OG Duck jerseys. We then see them wave across to the other Ducks, and as Carp looks around, we slowly see every Duck from every movie are in all the stands. Even Coach Ryan, Charlie's mum, Jesse and Terry's dad, and Lewis the limo driver have all made the trip to support the Ducks on their big game. Charlie and Bombay notice that Adam has turned up for the game, and he calls the ref for a timeout, and all the Ducks head over to greet Adam. The kids are ecstatic to see their coach at the game, and obviously in better health and not in a hospital. And it's nothing but pure joy around him. Everything goes slow motion, and we hear the jingle of that classic Mighty Ducks theme from the first movie. And Carp can't help but smile to himself as he looks at how happy the kids are, and also seeing all the old Ducks together and the new Ducks together, everyone together, makes him realise that no matter where life took everybody, they're all at peace with the fact that whether you were a Duck for 1 season or for 10, a Mighty Duck is for life. So Carp also calls his team back, and then he says to his team that there's a change of plan. He informs them all that for the rest of the game, he needs them to start playing fair. They're confused. He says, look, win or lose, you're my team. And I know what you think about me, but I promise that I won't let you go once this is over. You've all proved your loyalty to me, to each other. You've all worked so hard to get here, and from now on, I don't want you to play any unnecessary offense. Just go out there and play the game and have a good time. The team said, but if we play fair, we'll lose. And he says, you went from being juvenile offenders to playing in the finals of the state championship against the Mighty Ducks. All of you have already won. So the final game plays out with a fierce but fair game. The Ducks taking the W, but only by 1 point. And as both teams of kids shake hands and congratulate each other, Carp walks over to the Ducks and shakes hands with Charlie and Gordon and Adam, who Tammy's now wheeled onto the ice. Gordon tells Carp that for what it's worth, they're sorry and that he makes a great coach and he played a great game for the second half at least. He then tells him that he can't wait to see how they do next season and that he's looking forward to seeing where the game takes the Buckshots next. So the episode's going to play out with a montage of We Are the Champions, of course, showing photographs taken at the event. We see mixed up pictures of all the Ducks, old and new, all taking selfies together, having random press shots all stood together. Then we see articles and blog posts. We see a shot of the Ducks all holding up the trophy saying Ducks back where they belong. We see there's a shot of all the Bemidji Buckshots together. It says from Juvie Hall to second place. And then we see a shot of Charlie, Adam, Carp, and Bombay all stood together. And then that pans out to every Duck all in a shot together on the front of a blog. And it says Ducks Fly Forever, which will also be the title of my series. The end.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
That was crazy.
My friend.
Thank you.
I have so much to say. So much to say. I just have to say,
take it.
before we even go any further, Theo, if you don't design a T-shirt that has the Buckshots logo on it that I can buy, I will be horribly upset
Just for
the
you.
rest of my life. Please.
I second that too.
Like, there's so much about that's just so brilliant. I was like picturing the Buckshots as like Simon Phoenix's like team of criminals in like Demolition.
Yeah.
And
I tried to use the fact that like Carp, he's hench now, and he's still acting. Do you know what I mean? And I thought, how can I write that in? And then I thought having him as the guy that, because he's never mentioned again, that he got, like, we as the audience forget about him. So when he does turn up, you're like, fuck man, Carp, like no way. And he plays the story perfectly because how different he looks now.
And that was a big part that a lot of the Ducks that didn't transfer over, it's like, what happened to them? So I think that's great that you incorporated that, and then seeing it sort of, it's not like Cobra Kai, but having that, seeing the story that we don't know, and from someone else's perspective, I think that's a really cool way to go into the universe. What did you guys think?
I thought it was brilliant. I mean, just the fact that he used Carp, like the most forgotten Duck, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Like, brilliant. You guys all killed it, like lines and details and scenes. I must have misunderstood this assignment, but anyway, it was so fun to just like listen to what you guys came up with.
Yeah, the lazy Americans, as that we've been called in D2.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was fucking great. I just wrote down like some words of this and I was like, Kill Squad, great. Buckshots, great. Full team of Bash Brothers, amazing. Like, I love that there are two antagonist teams as well meeting, because we never really got that. Like,
I just love that concept. Yeah, love the concept.
The Hawks meeting the Buckshots. That's just like,
that's what I wanted. Yeah, I wanted it to be like fierce. Do you know what I mean? But
epic.
I think that doing that, you also build up to like these guys. They're not just like bullies on the ice. They can actually whoop a good team now.
Yeah.
So they've like got everything. Because like you were saying, like a few of you saying about the villains, and I thought like it's important to like build them up as much. So just trying to do that as best I could. You know what I mean? With my little one,
I didn't do any villains, and you did too. So I mean, this is why Simon didn't plan this, but this is why you end with a film writer. That was just like, fucking want to see it. That was great.
That was awesome. Figure out the tone, or like, what are we looking like? And when you were describing it, have you guys seen the movie Goon?
Yeah, no Goon, yeah.
Yeah, so like super violent hockey, like, bloody knuckles kind of stuff. I was thinking that combined with like, it's on AMC, or it's like those kind of like very, very dark, like literally cinematic dark, and the more adult version of kind of throwing it out there raw. Awesome job. That was
try to write it in a way, because like, if you just how the Ducks look now and how they might play into it, like how can I use that to utilize the character, and like that's why I'd like, no.
That was awesome.
You master.
And I think too, well, from the few here, I think there's an opportunity to have like the adult version of Game Changers, right? Or just the grown up version. It doesn't have to be so brutal, I suppose, but
I didn't want it super brutal. I still want it
Yeah.
to be wholesome. It's very much about the kids. I just want it when like there's just them few left field moments where you're like, oh man, these are right bad kids. You know what I mean? And as much as, but at the same time, showing enough about them to know why they're bad. Because yeah, you always feel like kids aren't just like inherently evil. They would just be whoever's pulling the strings is going to make them worse. And we saw how Carp ended up in Juve. That might be how all of those kids ended up in Juve and why they're now they feel the need to do the stuff, because if we don't beat the Ducks, we've got no purpose. We're like a Terminator when he's terminated who he needs to terminate. He might as well go into lava because his mission's done. So I wanted to try and feed into none of the kids are actually inherently evil, but there's a reason why they're like this. And if we follow them both, I mean, I wanted to flesh out more. I wrote like a bit where Carp had like a brother who was a real good football player, and that's how he had the helmet in the first film when he was playing. He has a little football helmet on, but it's a half brother, and his half brother's from like a nice part of the family with money and stuff like that. His half brother's really athletic and things, so we always kind of resented him. I had all little bits that I just took out because it was just too much.
The backstory you wrote for Carp was perfect.
Wicked.
Literally just perfect.
So, sorry. I was gonna say I don't think you copied from Cobra Kai whatsoever, but what you came up with is a lot. So many people want to compare Game Changers, what we have, to Cobra Kai, and what you wrote is way more how.
I think mine would be definitely more in tone with Cobra Kai. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I also had him go around different different detention centers getting kids, like picking out the worst of the worst. But then I remembered that when I watched it again yesterday with the state lines, it wouldn't have been allowed. It had had to be from one place. So I did them as the Bemidji buckshots, and they were just all from Bemidji in that detention center. Because otherwise it would have been like Cobra Kai when Kreese is just going all over, just getting all these gnarly kids to be in his
Yeah.
Hawk.
And speaking for the state, Bemidji is actually really nice. Like it's very beautiful. There's lakes all over the place. It's a nice place. But for the story, we'll
when I typed in like worst crime states in Minnesota, and Bemidji was there all the time, and I needed to start. I started with B for the buckshots because I was like, what kills a duck? Buckshot.
You need alliteration. That's
yeah. So that's fine. So in my world, Bemidji is horrible. It's like Escape from New York.
When in reality, like one old lady ran a red light last year, and that's the worst crime.
Breaking news.
I think that it's really clever as well, because if you think back to the first Ducks, when you've got, rest in peace to Lane Smith, he gives like such an amazing performance as Coach Riley, and he's my favorite character in maybe all of the movies. Like I love his performance in it, but he's saying things like, if you blow this game, no one makes the team next year. And he's sort of like playing. I mean, he sort of becomes good in the end, but they're being led by someone. And like they say in Cobra Kai, there's no such thing as a bad student, only a bad teacher. And it kind of falls into that, but it ups the levels, because that's what we do with things. Like you look at horror movies from, now and to, from like the 80s. I mean, I'm probably talking to the wrong crowd here, because I know, Thea, you know all about this and I don't really, but the shock value and things we're more immune to it, so it's you have to up the levels. And I think and there is that audience there, because look at all of us and how passionate we are about it. There is that audience that I think you could have Game Changers, and then you could also have this adult version, and I think it would be awesome. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think I was thinking of that earlier, because I mean, I know we're rewriting Game Changers, but Game Changers is great. Like,
I love it. That's why I didn't want to rewrite Game Changers, because I was like, I think it's great. I'll just do something so different like you did, just something that's completely a different
exactly.
world.
See, I thought that's what the assignment was, more to what would we do to current Game Changers? Like, we're kind of keeping it as it is, but what changes would we make? That's why mine came across as so lazy and short, and I apologize. I feel like I wasted your time.
No, this is a pilot. We're piloting this out. I mean, I have no idea how this is going to work, but I think all of the pitches were great. I've enjoyed hearing all of them. But let's go into our final part here. Okay, so in the chat function, so that it's private, all you need to do is hit me with who was number 1 and who was number 2, and then I'll work out the points. And then people in the comments, Let us know which pitch you want to have made and why you liked it. Keep it all positive. We're doing this for the love of it.
The result of who came in as number one is the most least suspenseful thing I've ever been a part of.
And you did it, Jason. You won. So
yes, everyone liked my lazy 5-second synopsis.
Hey, you establish a baseline that's pretty low. You come back player of the year.
On purpose. I did this on purpose.
The results are in, but like I said, these results aren't what matter. These are just our opinions. What matters is what everyone thinks is subjective. Just let us know in the comments, and there is no wrong opinion here. So, of our votes here privately, I can let you know that coming in runner-up, number 2, the silver medal, Iceland in the Junior Goodwill Games, is me.
Nice one.
I take that. I'm proud of that.
Very well done.
And I'm sure maybe to nobody's surprise, coming in number 1, gold, Team USA, the champions, is Theo.
No way, really? I thought your format was like just fun and silly. Oh, I appreciate that. That's wicked.
You're our reigning champion,
nice
man.
one. I'm the reigning champion.
But what that does mean is we all want to buy a Buckshots t-shirt.
Oh, I thought you said that means everyone's gunning for the top spot now. The next one, it's got to be just as good.
No,
Yeah,
you're the champ, man. If we had a title, like a WWE style title belt, you'd be holding that right
nice
now.
One.
But I just want to sincerely say thank you to everyone. Like I said, there is no right or wrong. It's all subjective. I loved them all. It was so much fun. You can follow me and all this sort of stuff on Instagram at Simon Podcasts. Where can people catch you at?
At Theo_Kane, CANE_Slimehouse. That's where I'm the most active is on Instagram, I would say. Yeah.
And I'll put all the links in cool. Beneath in the description. Aaron, where can people get at you?
You can get me at Keita91 on Instagram.
That's where he will be wielding the sword. Connor?
At Jersey Chasing on Instagram.
For the dopest collection of Scream War Mighty Ducks jerseys.
I'm gonna add Connor on Instagram. I didn't know he had an Instagram.
Oh, you're gonna lose your mind, man, when you see it. It's the envy of everyone. And Jason, where can people catch you at?
Daniel LaRusso is going to fight.
I love
Such a
that.
dope name.
So all of them links will be below. Catch up with everybody on there. It's a great community of, passionate, diehard Mighty Ducks fans. And let us know what your pitch would be. Like, we want to hear it. And if people enjoy this, maybe we'll do more of these and we can, give our own pitches for other movies and TV shows. But sincerely, thank you to everybody here. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for doing this. This was fun.
I'm telling you, you blow this game and nobody makes the team next year.